Summer's here, and it's time to lose the COVID 20. Find out how you can combat obesity and feel great and look great. Coming up next. Hey, Edward, thanks for joining us on this wonderful, almost summer Thursday. How you doing today, bud?
Doing great. How about you?
I can't believe we're almost at summer. I think we've all been, I don't know if I can say we've all been in our homes, and we're going to get to this because one thing that's great about the pandemic is I've seen more people out like jogging, walking as a group, which is good, right? You're not sitting on your butt eating bonbons trying to gain the COVID 20. But we've had you on the show a lot, and we've talked about every kind of subject under the sun, but I want to get into the kind of fact versus fiction, right? Like, what is a lot of people are out working out, right? We led up to that. Like, what's the difference between all this stuff? One of the big things I hear about is like aerobic and anaerobic. Should I be working out and just running? Should I be hitting the gym? Like, you're the expert here, my friend. Your background, I have other health professionals refer to you as the godfather of fitness and bringing it to the media's attention. So let's break this down. You're the expert. What's the difference between what kind of workout is good for you? Is it all running? Is it a mix of both? What gives?
Okay. The first thing that everyone needs to realize is that in theory, Eric, all exercise can be good for us. That's the first thing. In other words, if you were to classify exercises, you've got running, jumping rope, swimming, walking, biking, lifting weights, doing a HIIT class, doing a yoga class. In theory, all of those can be good for us. However, they may not be good for you if, A, orthopedically and medically it goes against what you're doing, your joints, and B, can you maintain it, and C, is that the type of exercise that you're doing to get to your goal, whether that be tighten up, add mass, or lose weight. So we often hear, aerobic exercise and anaerobic, right? It's thrown around. But if I were to ask you, could you tell me the difference between the two?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I Googled it yesterday. And no,
Okay.
I still can't. I mean, I know a little bit from, obviously being in the military and going through sheriff's academies and those kind of things. Obviously, I think I have an idea about them, but by definition, probably no, because I think of aerobic workout today as 44-year-old Eric is hopping on my Peloton or going for a run, which I love doing both. To me, that's aerobic because I'm not touching weights.
And that's correct. But for the viewers out there, we still haven't defined it.
No.
We gave an example.
Yeah.
You just gave two good examples of it. So very simply put in layman terms, aerobic exercise is any exercise that we can do continuously without the need of a break. Anaerobic means exercise with a break, and we often hear the term without oxygen. Really, what it has to do is our heart rate. When we do aerobic exercise, Eric, the reason why you can do a 45-minute spin or Peloton or any type of aerobic run is because your heart rate does this, Eric. It goes up at that angle, and then it levels off, goes up a little bit, down a little bit, up a little bit, down a little bit, and you're able to take in oxygen because you're not overworking, which allows it to be continuous. There you go. Anaerobic is exercise that we must need to take a break. For instance, if you were jumping up on a platform, if you were doing a push-up or lifting a weight, now your heart rate does this, Eric. Look, It goes like this. Look at the difference in the degree of angle. Aerobic, anaerobic. So it starts out 80, 90, 100, 10, 20, 30, 150, 160, 170. You have to stop, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You have to stop in order to take in oxygen. So that's the main difference.
Awesome.
We all need both, but people choose the type of exercise thinking that, ooh, I heard that anaerobic burns more calories. And it does per square second of time, because your heart, the reason why is your heart rate's higher, you're working harder. So now you know that. However, if you're deconditioned, you can't do anaerobic exercise. So you do these short hit type of movements. You have to take these breaks. Whereas the turtle guy is biking on his stationary bike, and at the end of that hour, the turtle guy burned more calories. So, got it? That's very key.
Like
so, yes, per square second of time, we burn more calories, but are we conditioned to do that?
yeah.
Let me throw out some data to you, then you can ask me a question. Only 1 out of 10 people exercise twice a week or more.
Oh, wow.
That's it. I'm not talking taking a walk. That's not exercise. A full body exercise regimen.
Yeah.
So out of that 10% now, which is a very small pool now, the population, isn't it?
Yeah, very small.
400 million, 10%, 40 million, right? So how many of those people are warming up, stretching beforehand, doing the right amount of aerobic that matches their orthopedic concerns, and are doing enough anaerobic weight bearing and toning exercises to incorporate what is called a full fitness program? And the answer is only 10% of that 10%. So that's why I always use the expression people that run only for fitness. In other words, they don't stretch, they don't do anything else, and you know who they are. They are fit to run, but they're not, quote, fit.
Yeah.
Or people that lift weights are fit to lift weights, but they're not, quote, fit. So at the end, it's the total amount of calories burned. And as you get in better shape, then start adding in more anaerobic exercise, because your heart is stronger because of the aerobic that you did to train it to get stronger, if that helps you.
Oh, that does. That helps so much, actually. So let me ask you this, Edward. One of the big things, and everybody talks about, we're talking about, which one's better for weight loss. Everybody, a lot of people have gained some weight being in quarantine. It's summertime. It's hot. We're going outside. We want to not have dad bods or any other kind of bods. You don't want to be fluffy, or as our friends on Seinfeld once coined, muffin top. So let me ask you, Edward, which is better for weight loss, aerobic or anaerobic exercise? And can you kind of tell us why one is better than the other when it comes to weight loss? Everybody's always looking to lose weight, and there's a bazillion fad diets out there, but the one that I know always seems to work is exercise. But what is the right exercises to do between anaerobic and aerobic, now that we know the difference? Which one is the one that will lead to weight loss?
Sure. Okay, for people that are deconditioned, or let's say beginner to moderate fitness wise, both are needed, but 70% of their workout should be more aerobically geared. For those people that are a lot more conditioned, depending upon if you want to tone or lose weight, right now we're talking about weight loss, 60% of your workout should be more aerobically geared. So people don't understand that in theory, here's a perfect example. You've jump roped, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay. So what's the longest that you can do without needing to take a break? Is it 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes? 5 minutes.
Personally, I've been able to do 5, and I had to build up. It used to be 3, but I have gigantic calf muscles. I don't want to show them on TV, but I have gigantic calves. So I can bounce for a long time. I love jumping rope. It's an amazing exercise that I found out by playing sports in my youth, and I found out it helped, especially in basketball. We had some amazing coaches that, to keep your Achilles strong and all
Sure.
that. And I mean, you see a lot of guys now, especially in the NBA, a lot of them are jumping rope. It's the way that they warm up, and it's an amazing exercise. And I know you are like
Right.
masters.
But so in theory, if you were to look up aerobic type exercises, jump rope would be classified under aerobic. But the reason why you can only do 5 minutes is your heart rate. So although on paper, some exercises are classified as aerobic, for people that are not conditioned yet, it acts anaerobically. Interesting, right?
Right, it's crazy.
Yeah. So the best overall aerobic exercise is number one, probably jumping rope. Jogging with sprint intervals in between is number two. And swimming is number three. And running up hills is number four. Jogging on like a golf course. But it takes a long time to be able to do that. You can't even get people to walk a mile today. But you're telling them, the media is telling them, hey, you burn more calories in those HIIT workouts, Susan. All right, so Susan then tries to try that HIIT workout. She can't sustain it. 9 out of 10 times that individual is going to get hurt. So when you get hurt, not only you're discouraged, but you can't get fit. Rather than the person who goes into it not slowly, more prudently, and that person never misses a day of their exercise. So the most important factor in fitness is consistency. That's the key word.
Perfect. I love that consistency. I think that's a very good thing to remember when it comes to working out. Is I believe what's the adage? If you do something for 20 straight days, it builds a habit. That's what I was always told. So I tell my kids that it's probably not true, but it is consistency, working out all the time. I'm still mesmerized by your first stat that you gave us about only 10% of people work out more than 3 times a week, which is crazy because to me it's just part of our day. You've been on our show before and you talked about scheduling it, and I took your advice to that. You actually told me that in person when we were both in a green room together, and I've done that ever since. I block it off. It's like, this is my meditation, this is my stretching, this is my workout time. So there's no excuse. Nobody gets in the way of my workout. And whether it's a 30-minute workout or 45-minute workout, I'm moving my butt and raising my heart rate up. And then I have my weights that I do. I love doing weights. And even if it's body weight, it's still working out. I mean, push-ups when you're over 200 pounds, that's a workout. Trust me. I'm
right.
Those guys.
You're right, because you are moving 200 pounds. Even if you do only 20 reps, you just moved 4,000 pounds. Think about that number. The equivalent of that would be bench press of 200 pounds, 20 reps in a row. Big difference.
Oh, yeah. So let me ask you, since we're on this topic, we're going to stay on obesity. We're going to be summer. We're 2 days away from summer now. So what are some of the top aerobic exercises for weight loss and to combat this evil thing that plagues our country, obesity? We have a lot of people, you mentioned it, and we're just talking less than 10% of people. I mean, what's the number one thing I hear? I hear a lot of people going, well, I worked out today so I can eat whatever I want, right? I burned, these Apple Watches and these Fitbits are great, but everybody goes, oh, there's my calories. I burned 600, so I can go have that gigantic cheeseburger because I burned it off. It doesn't count. So what are the top exercises? And if you want to cover these people who believe that you can eat your calories after you worked out and it just counts like, hey, I'm good, I worked out, so it doesn't even count, you're more than welcome to. But I really want to know I think our audience would love to know the top aerobic exercises that they can use.
Okay, if you have bad back or bad knees or bad joints, the number one exercise is a recumbent stationary bicycle, period. It's designed to support your back, support your knees, and you can sustain it aerobically, and you also can do intervals on it as you get in better shape. Second, for people with orthopedic concerns, would be swimming. But the problem is with swimming, because of all the conditions now, you can't swim without being interrupted. And also, when we're in the pool, our heart rates are lower. They're more sedated. So we're not burning as many calories. But for people that can really swim for 15, 20, 30 minutes or longer, it is an excellent form. For people that don't have any joint issues, running, jumping rope, and of course, the best thing that people can do is jogging up hills, jogging down hills, because it's going to work balance as well as get your heart rate up and get your heart rate down. So those are the best out there. The worst for burning calories is the elliptical. And that's why people love it, because they get on it and it's easy. So they're thinking they're working out their upper body. But if you were to drop your arms, Eric, on an elliptical, the arm things are still moving, aren't they?
Yep.
Interesting. So the only effort you're putting into that is holding on to the arms. You're burning a little more calories than, let's say, not. However, not that much. Of all the people that we test aerobically that come into Exude, the people that do the elliptical rate the lowest 10 out of 10 times. Runners, number one. Cyclists, number two.
That is crazy. And that's funny about the elliptical, because it's true. When we used to go to gyms, that was the one that, number one, they have more of those than anything else. And it's always full of people who are I always notice people are doing things when they're on them. And I mean, I used to be guilty of that with working out and being like, oh, I could do work and work out. And then I was like, no, why am I giving my pleasure, which to me, I'm sadistic. I like the pain. I like the release and the dopamine and all the good stuff of a workout. And you're right. It's anything that you don't really break a sweat on, to me, you're not really working out. If you're doing aerobic exercise, you should be dripping with sweat. That's my 2 cents of Eric running. I know anytime I've run in my life, I come back soaked. That's why I think I like CrossFit at the time, because you could leave a sweat angel on the ground. You were like, yeah, I did work out because there's my sweat angel. I mean,
right.
The fun thing. But let me ask you this. And it talks about muscle, right? I mentioned CrossFit, I mentioned running. We've talked a lot. Is it true that if our bodies possess, more muscle, we can burn more fat and calories? I hear this a lot. My wife has friends that talk about this, and to me, it's like, so they don't want to be like, everybody thinks if you're jacked, you can burn more fat and calories. And I mean, I don't know the truth of it, because I have friends that work out, but then half of them, are secretly taking HGH or something else to work out. So it's like cheating to get to where they're at. And I know we all look at like professional wrestlers and guys like The Rock. Well, I mean, I also watched the Lance Armstrong documentary about those guys shooting up. And Lance, to me, he's cut, but he also rode the Tour de France. And you have to be a scrawny little dude to ride on the Tour de France. But, you kind of look at these guys and everybody talking about it. What's fact and fiction when it comes to this? If you have muscles and you're jacked.
Okay, so that's perfect, because this goes back to the beginning of our conversation. And that is, you had asked me what is the best exercise for weight loss? Is it aerobic or anaerobic? Well, let's say that you knew nothing about fitness. Okay, let's erase our minds from fitness. Let's take a look at athletes and how their bodies are built. Tell me the following. Are marathon runners thick or thin?
Oh, they're scrawny little dudes, because they can run those things in like under 3 hours.
Same with cyclists, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay. Same with cross-country skiers, right?
Yep.
Same with swimmers, right?
Yep.
Okay. What are all those forms of exercise that they primarily do for their training?
Aerobic.
I just gave you the answer for proof. It doesn't matter whether you like what Ed Jakowski says. It doesn't matter what you think your theory is. I'm not interested in what you have to say. I'm interested in only the science.
I love it.
Now, let's take a look at athletes that are thicker. Speed skaters have thighs the size of mountains, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sprinters. Very muscular, right?
Yep.
Bodybuilders, are they thin?
Nope.
So the next time someone says to you that weights don't bulk, and it's the best way to lose weight, I'll tell you what, based on that theory, let's take a bodybuilder and a marathon runner, switch their workouts, take a photo of them a year later. Would they still possess that body?
No, it would change. It would morph.
So
right?
There we go, class. Now I can help you.
I love it.
You got this? There's stubbornness out there.
Yeah.
There's stupidity out there. I'm not saying that aerobic is the only thing we need to do. What I'm saying is that depending upon your goals, your objectives, there are more movements that are better geared towards that goal. Weightlifting can be done aerobically, by the way,
Yeah.
but people don't know how to do it because they're not educated. So in answering now, let's get back to that question. If I have more muscle, I burn more fat. If I read that one more time, I think I'm going to explode. What people mean to say is, if we have a better body ratio, Eric, of a 200-pound person, of more muscle to fat. So instead of being 40% fat out of a 200-pound person, and let's take a 20% percentage of fat 200-pound person, one person has 80 pounds of fat, and the other person has 40 pounds, correct?
Yep.
In theory, if both ate cheeseburgers and fries, the 20% person would gain a half a pound, and the 40% person would gain 2 pounds because they're able to burn more calories, Eric, but this is the key, only during resting state. Not having to do with burning. You don't burn more fat. You burn more calories only during resting state. And you know what that is called?
No.
Sure you do. What is our basal metabolic rate? Our BMR.
Oh, that's right.
So now you know what BMR stands for. So people don't even know what these terms mean. BMR means during resting state, how many calories am I burning versus myself or an individual that has more fat or less fat. So when we get fitter, we can burn more calories. So we're going to go in the back door for obesity. Watch. I'm 40% body fat. I want to lose 30 pounds. I'm a big person. I have a lot of muscle and I'm over fat. So if you focus on losing fat, don't you now have more muscle?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. So for that person, they got to go in the back door. Got it?
Oh, yeah.
That's why fitness, although plausibly simple, it's not really, is it?
No, you've got this. Right now, I'm over here with my pen just taking notes because this has been, every time I enjoy talking to you. And I want to touch on a point because when I first met you, besides people screwing up our names, which was hilarious, you met my wife, who's very much into fitness like myself, and you guys had this great conversation. And mind you, this was before quarantine, and you guys had this conversation because my wife's in her mid-40s, and you guys started talking about how my wife switched because she used to do all aerobic exercise, right? And she was frustrated because the weight was not coming off at all. It was frustrating for her because she eats right, and she's very careful about what she puts in her body. She's no processed foods, pounds water, doesn't drink soda, doesn't drink, doesn't do anything. And the weight wasn't coming off, and it led to a lot of frustration. And you guys had this conversation, and she's like, I've really started going over to weights. And you told her, it's this fine line. You kind of have to mix it perfectly and tweak yourself. And she's been able to do that, and she's dropped even more weight and is completely, in her eyes and in my eyes for sure, completely physically fit to the point where she's doing the right amount of, stretching has been key. Also doing weights, because for her, it wasn't because cardio did nothing for her. She just would be like, boom, and it was done. That's not a workout.
And that's because that's good.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because when she was doing cardio, her heart rate only went up to a certain point, and she couldn't do that particular cardio that she chose more vigorously without putting undue stress on her joints. So what happened was she plateaued, not because of the type of exercise, but because when she first started out, her heart rate was this, 130. But now that she's conditioned, that same movement, her heart rate's only 100. So she stopped burning calories. She stopped raising her metabolism, and she couldn't do that. So that's why slow joggers plateau. They can't go faster because their shins and their knees kill them. And so then they go only over to weights and they somewhat lose weight, but then they start bulking because they're not burning the fat off. Remember, people think that women and men bulk because of testosterone. Well, that being the case, there wouldn't be any women bodybuilders. Women bulk because of estrogen. Some women, very powerful stuff. Some women have more levels of estrogen. The more estrogen you have, the faster you bulk.
I like that.
But that bulking means that you add muscle under the fat, Eric, because the fat sits on top of the muscle.
I love it. So before you go, I have this one for you. And it's something that I've done since I was 18 years old. Sit-ups. The Marine Corps requires them. We have to be able to do 80 sit-ups in 2 minutes, which at 18 was pretty easy. It's still pretty easy in my 40s. But a lot of people have, there's those machines in the gym. I always say the sit-up machine is probably next to the elliptical as the biggest waste of time. It's not really an exercise for your abs because I've never seen them. And people then you have the other argument, sit-ups are bad for your back. I know we do them and we have a pad, and I do have a spinal issue from a accident I had years ago, and I use it and I still love sit-ups. My wife loves sit-ups. But solve this for everybody else who's like, sit-ups are bad, that's why I don't do them. They're bad for your back. I've heard, obviously people have excuses for not working out, and if it's the littlest thing, they'll be like, oh, I heard it's bad for my back, so I don't do it. I don't know why.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. Oh, sit-ups, yeah, they're bad for, I don't do them.
Yeah.
Okay, great question. So years ago, remember Roman chairs?
Mm-hmm.
Where you would do that and hyperextend and this and that? Well, men in our age group, you're a little younger than me, your age group, these people started to develop disc issues, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And they started to question them and survey them. And 9 out of 10 of these people at some level were doing sit-ups on a hyperextension machine, locking their legs or hooking their legs under something. So people also use the word sit-up thinking that a crunch is synonymous with a sit-up, and they are not.
Right.
So the rule of thumb is this. If you are on a mat and your legs are bent and you hook your feet under, you're going to utilize your back more so than your abs. And you're going to probably injure your back, especially if you have tight hamstrings.
Yeah.
But if you do not lock your feet and do a full sit-up, depending upon the degree of the angle and the degree of the intensity, it is the number one exercise for back protocol in the world today.
Awesome.
Based on the theory that sit-ups are bad for your back. You know, it's funny. I've never heard of a boxer ever cancel a boxing match because he had a bad back. Have you?
No.
And what do they do thousands of?
Sit-ups.
Thank you. So there you go. So it really depends on the current level of fitness. What people don't know what to do is if they have a weak area on their body, they don't know how to do a modified version of that movement in order to prepare the body for a more vigorous movement. If they did that, they could segue from a beginner setup into an intermediate setup into a more advanced setup. But because we want the advance and everything, we do that, and then we blame it on the movement. And here's a perfect example. Let's say that you're very weak and you start bench pressing. So you and I are spotting someone and we put 300 pounds on the bar. He's a beginner. So we help him up with the weight. We let go. And what's going to happen to that weight? It's going to come crashing down on him, and he's going to probably break his sternum or clavicle. Then he's going to say, oh, I tried bench press. It's really bad for you. Now you get my point.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
The exercise isn't bad for you. You're not prepared to do that movement properly. Therefore, you're going to get injured, but not because of the exercise per se. There you go.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have answered so many questions today. I mean, I love this. I think people can really take away from this as we go into summer. This weekend, we finally hit summer. I feel like we've been in summer forever. A lot of parts of the country we're finally seeing it, but I know some other parts are seeing record cool temperatures still. But this is good. We need to get out, be active. And Edward, as always, you are a great, inspiration to us all. You've been leading the charge for fitness for years, decades. I hate to age you, but decades. So it's an honor to be able to say that. So it's always good for you to come on and help folks out. And everybody, just so you know, Edward's going to be coming by our show quite often. You're going to see him a couple times a month, joining us to give us fitness tips and tricks, answer your questions. If you do have questions, please make sure to put them in the comments, and I'll make sure Edward gets them and can answer them, and then we'll put them on the show, and we'll answer your questions while we go, so we're able to answer those fitness questions. And obviously, if you need to reach out to Edward, you could just simply swipe up below and click the links that we have that will take you directly to Edward and his team. So, Edward, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Great being here again.
Oh, it's awesome.
The most important thing for people to understand is it takes time to build a village. It takes time to build a house. You don't need to bench press 200 pounds. In the realm of life, it means nothing. What's important is touch your toes, do 50 sit-ups, be able to be flexible, do 50 push-ups, do 20 push-ups. If your starting level is 1, you receive, oh, this is great, I'll let you go. Let's say that you can only do 5 push-ups, Eric. That's all you can do. Now, let's say your twin, Eric, which is you, really you, can do 30, 40, or 50 push-ups. That one, your brother, Eric, twin brother, receives the same fitness benefit doing 5 push-ups that his twin brother, Eric, gets from 40 push-ups. Isn't that powerful?
That's crazy.
You know why? Because if you tax your system and challenge it, the body acts as if it's been working out its whole life. So that 5 is as good as your 40, but that 5 has to then go to 6 to 7 and beyond to receive that same strength benefit as Eric's brother's 40. That's the key. So it doesn't matter where you start. It's like I always tell my kids, it's not how you start, it's how you end.
Amen.
Strive to be better. You never master fitness. I don't care who you are. It's like golf. It's like tennis. It's like anything in our life. Strive towards it. And that's the beautiful thing about exercise is that it gives us so many things and you're never bored. I hate when people say, oh, I did that. It's boring. You did it for 2 minutes, you ADD squared individual. What are you kidding me?
I love that one. And another one that I've heard, especially being in basketball for a lot of my life, and friends who work out, and they would laugh at some of us. And even in our 40s in the rec leagues that we played in until the pandemic hit, is I would go work out. We would work out together and do lift weights and do obviously cardio because basketball is very cardio. And people would laugh. I've heard more than one person go, I don't need to lift weights. Michael Jordan didn't lift weights. And I'm like, you just compared yourself to one of the greatest athletes of all times. And yes, as Michael got older, and actually when Michael started winning championships, as proven in the great documentary that ESPN did called Last Dance, where is it in there? When the Bulls started winning is when Michael hit the weight room in the offseason and bulked up and learned he could run, and he was like a gazelle. The dude had wheels. But if you look at Jordan mid 80s to Jordan when they hit that 90 streak where nobody could beat the
His
Bulls.
body was so much
Oh,
stronger.
yeah, the shoulders. Even Scottie Pippen, who liked the weight room, they all got big. Even Rodman, I love Dennis. You know, they all understand you need to be bulky and take it. And back in the 90s, especially the early 90s for our millennials watching, if you watch the NBA in the 90s, there were fights. They were throwing
They
each other
got
on the
beat up.
ground.
They got beat up every night.
Oh, the Knicks and the Pistons were like the leaders of the pack on beating people up playing hoop. You had to bulk up. So I always find it funny. Somebody wants to compare themselves. And then, you know, I hear, oh, I'm like The Rock. I'm like, no, you're not. The Rock goes to the gym 6 hours a day. Why? Because he's paid heavily by Under Armour to go to his private gym to wear that stuff with his film crew. You're not going to the gym with a film crew. Under Armour's not paying you to be there. You're not going to go for 6 and get to have his cheat day. Well, The Rock is The Rock. You're not the. People always want to compare themselves to these other people, and that's why I love having you here, because you're like, nope, here's the science behind it. This is what you need to do, and you break it down where it's more than just, 5 push-ups. That's something to do, and I always tell people that. They're like, I can't do it, and I hear a lot. Even my daughter, who's an athlete, I remember when she started, especially in track, was I want to be the best sprinter. And what she quickly found out is, yeah, you can go run, but sprinting takes practice. There's a lot of even lifting that you have to do. She never understood that in her first year of track, is how much weights and cardio equal success in a sport.
Made her
It
faster.
does, and she didn't believe it. And even she's a scrawny little thing, but she does great at shot put because she's built up the muscle. And it's not like she looks like, you know, some of these Russian ones from the 80s that were showing up at the Olympics that look like they've taken one too many steroids. She's, you know, able to throw it. And you look at all the folks that are leading the way. I mean, here in Oregon, we are track and field central.
Well, Eric, all you got to do is look at the genetics of you and your wife, and you're both big bone people. So big bone people should do sports that are anaerobic in general.
Yep.
It's not an accident that every single marathon runner is not anaerobically built. They can't. They have the opposite problem of you and I.
Yeah.
They can't bulk.
No.
And you don't want bulk for long distance.
Oh God, no. But they also run.
Just
They
like
also run 26.2 miles in 2 hours and 45 minutes.
So the more weight, and it doesn't matter what kind of weight, muscle or fat, the more stress is to their heart, they can't sustain it. That's all.
Yeah.
It's very simple. People need to understand not just the science, but even if you didn't agree, like I said, the visuals before, take a look at athletes. Their bodies look that way because they primarily do movements that are geared towards neededness to perform better in that sport. That's all.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, you see it in everything. I compare a lot. As everyone knows, I'm a diehard Yankee fan. And I always compare, and I have several in my office, of the captain. I love Jeter. And if you look at Jeter when he started in the league in the early 90s, and you look at the captain when he was winning, I mean, the Yankees win all the time. But, you know, if you look at Derek, he bulked up for his position. The shortstop, he wasn't this scrangly little kid anymore. He hit the weight room. He knew what he was doing. I'm not talking about his off-field stuff, which he's a legend at that. But if you look at what he did on the field and look at him, and even A-Rod, besides the steroids, A-Rod bulked up, became a player. All players, all athletes, people who get into fitness, even on a just I want to be in shape kind of stuff, you see the definition because you understand what you're doing. If you want to be a runner, like you've said, you're going to look like Prefontaine, right? The great Pre.
Correct.
But I mean, if you want to look, I always look at somebody who looks healthy, like Rich Froning, right? The great Rich Froning, you know, CrossFit's like basically their god. If you look at him and then you look at Jason Khalipa, and I'll pick on CrossFit, I love them. I love those guys. Both physically fit, but both very different bodies. Jason looks a lot like the Hulk, and Rich Froning is look like a Greek god. Like you look at him, he's almost perfect with muscle. He tells you he loves weights, hates cardio, which I think is just a CrossFit thing. I think every CrossFitter I know, I love you guys, but you're all like, we hate cardio. I'm like, but you have to run. I mean, it's great you can throw weight in the air, but...
Well, you got to remember, Eric, none of these people, you know, we talked about weight loss today. None of these people that do this type of training, these athletes that you're talking about, were ever fat.
Nope. Sure.
Right. So they are able to lift more weights and not be fat because they didn't start out fat. And that's what the public doesn't know. When they see a celebrity's body or they see someone's body and they're like, ooh, I want to have that body. You can have that body, but you first need to lose 80 pounds. But you can't get to that body with that workout because it goes against science. I don't care how much. In fact, the more you do it, the worse you'll look.
So true.
We'll leave you with that.
No, it's been great having you on. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I want to get to our next guest, but Edward, man, it's always great having you on here. You are a legend. You're my go-to guy for all my fitness questions. That's why I share you with the world here, so more and more people can learn from you. Because I mean, you've been teaching people. I mean, your bio, like I said at the beginning of this, goes forever with amazing. You were the first guy that was on TV talking about this with Barbara Walters and all these, Diane Sawyer and all these folks teaching.
And everyone thought I was a quack then. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this is what's happening.
Right.
And it's come full circle, which is great. But you need a lot of stamina because everyone's an expert, as you know.
Oh yes.
You lose 50 pounds, you're an expert, or you write a book that you don't even know what you wrote a book about, you're an expert. And I don't use that term freely. To me, you're not an expert unless you have focused on an area of expertise, not a general area, a specific area for at least 10 years in both the lab, empirical, real data, and the real world. And most people don't have that stamina and focus to do that. You know that.
Oh, yeah. So perfect. Okay, my friend. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Again, if you want to connect with Edward, just simply go down into the notes and click the link. We'll connect you with Edward and he'll answer questions. If you have a question, also drop them in the comments and we will both follow up and answer your questions, whatever you have. And we'll have Edward back real soon here on our Throwdown Thursday to talk about more of your fitness needs as we go through the summer and you get your butt up off the couch and start working out and figuring out what's going on and stop making excuses, get out of your own head and move forward. So Edward, I want to thank you for joining us today, my bud, and have yourself a great weekend.
One last thing, Eric, as we become older, weights are needed more, not because we're getting older, but because we're getting older and we're not as active. That's the key thing. It's not that we're getting older. It's just that our activity level drops as we become older. So because of that, we're not taxing our muscles as much. That's why it is needed. That's all.
Perfect. You always give good advice. I'm telling you. We could just leave you on here for like hours and we could just take out notes. But then you probably want people to go to your business and pay you to give all this advice. So we should probably do that.
It's all good.
It's all good. Well, thank you, bud. We'll see you really soon. And everybody else, stay tuned for our next amazing guest.